to discuss the issue whether or not animal experimentation is humane or not. Lindsay and Kate will be arguing the affirmative construct about why animal experimentation is humane, and Courtney and Mickey will be arguing the negative construct as to why animal experimentation is not humane. It is important that we discuss this issue because it is highly controversial and is discussed among students, academic elites, as well as universities campus all across the nation. And Lindsay will be now presenting the first affirmative construct argument on why animal experimentation is humane.
I will be making several arguments in favor of conducting experiments on animals for scientific and medical purposes. To support this argument, the first pro I will present is that each experiment is determined on a case-by-case basis. It is to be determined that there is a decent chance of an important medical breakthrough. According to research found on the website Understanding Animal Research, both the potential scientific and medical benefits of the research and the possible suffering of the animals used are weighed up carefully before any animal research project can proceed. In order for experimentation on an animal to be determined as valuable, the testing must lead to greater ends. According to the same website, it is made clear that no one wants to use animals in research and no one would use them unnecessarily. Animal research is considered a last resort and to be used only when there is no alternative method. In order to be sure that the testing is necessary, it must be concluded that there is no other way of researching. According to the above website, in the UK, strict regulations and a licensing system mean that animals must be looked after properly and may not be used if there is any other way of doing a piece of research. These controls will ensure that animals will only be used if there is a likelihood of important medical advances to result. The next point I would like to make is that while the purpose of experimenting is to reduce human suffering, it is also important that a high standard is held when keeping animal suffering to a minimum. It is possible to experiment on animals without being cruel. To ensure this, these policies are enforced in many countries. According to the Understanding Animal Research Organization, there have been special controls on the use of laboratory animals in the UK since 1876. These were revised and extended in 1986 as the Animal Scientific Procedures Act. This law safeguards laboratory animals' welfare while allowing important medical research to continue. These controls are widely regarded as the strictest in the world. In order to be sure that the animals are being treated in this way, the Animal Scientific Procedure Act requires various types of licensure to be obtained. According to the Understanding Animal Research site, animal procedures can only take place in research institutes or companies which have appropriate animal accommodation and veterinary facilities and have been granted a certificate of designation and be part of an approved research or testing program which has been given a project license while carried out by people with sufficient training skills and experience as shown in their personal license. The site also stated in most countries the regulation of animal research operates either through local ethical committees or by statutory controls imposed by central government. The third argument I will be delivering in favor of animal experimenting is that there have been countless medical advances as a result. The Understanding Animal Research website provided animal research has contributed to many of the medical advances we now take for granted. We have probably all benefited from vaccines and antibiotics to prevent and treat infections. Medicines can now overcome serious conditions such as diabetes, asthma, and high blood pressure. Many scientists who represent medical and scientific organizations agree that animal experimenting is critical for medical progress. Animal research has played a major role in developing improvements in human health. Animal research advanced the treatment of infections, improved cancer treatment, and has had a major impact on managing heart disease, brain disorders, arthritis, and transplantation, according to Professor Robert Winston. In order for these advances to be made, the same site stated that understanding the living body and what happens during disease and to develop safe and effective ways to treat and prevent disease it is critical to experiment on animals during all stages, not just in the safety testing. Animal testing is vital because many countries require drugs to be tested on animals before it can be allowed into the marketplace. If this testing was banned, then many medical achievements would come to a halt.
Thank you, Lindsay. Now now Courtney will cross-examine her.
Do you really believe that animals and humans have a similar enough biology to provide information of how to treat humans successfully? Yes, I feel that provided the evidence I have given, it is difficult to challenge the successfulness of such experiments on discovering treatment. According to Stephen Rose, author of Why I Experiment on Animals, one cannot ignore that medical discoveries from the treatment of diabetes to heart surgery have depended on animal experiments. It has been proven that scientific advances resulting from animal experimentation have contributed to medicines to prevent and treat terrible infections and diseases. Do you truly believe that modern medicine will come to stand still if animal testing does not continue? Yes, I believe there is plenty of evidence to prove that animal experimentation has led to outstanding advances in medicine, and it would not have been possible if scientists were unable to test on something so closely related biologically to humans as humans are, or as animals are. If animal experimentation came to a halt, medical advances would suffer, which would result in human suffering. What do you propose to ensure that safety of these animals during the testing periods? I suggest that every country adopts the Animal Scientific Procedure Act that is enforced currently in the UK. This will provide guidelines that are necessary to follow by law and the licensure policies needed to uphold the standards of keeping animal suffering to a low. This will also help determine the need for experiment to exist as the last possible choice.
Mindy will now be presenting the first negative construct on why animal experimentation is not humane.
As Vanessa stated, I'm here to present the first negative construct to support our arguments that animal experimentation is both inhumane and ineffective. Animal experiments are done on animals that are nothing like human beings, such as rats and mice, which undermines the argument that these experiments are a reliable guide to human reactions. Scientifically, as well as morally, most animal experimentation is to be rejected. The reaction of a mouse to a substance is no guide to human reactions. Each species has its own unique physiology. Why hasn't progress against cancer been equivalent with the effort and money invested? One explanation is the unwarranted preoccupation with animal research. Crucial genetic, molecular, and cellular differences between humans and other animals have prevented animal models from serving as an effective means by which to seek a cancer cure. Mice are most commonly used even though the industry's own Lab Animal magazine admits mice are actually poor models of the majority of human cancers. Leading cancer researcher Robert Weinberg has commented, "The preclinical animal models of human cancer, in large part, stink. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being wasted every year by drug companies using these models." According to Clifton Leaf, a cancer survivor himself, if you want to understand where the war on cancer has gone wrong, the mouse is a pretty safe place to start. Furthermore, the advent of genetic technologies have made possible all sorts of new and horrific acts of animal exploitation, from cloning sheep to creating mutant and hybrid creatures with no dignity or no quality of life at all. We should end animal experimentation before things get even worse. Sheep, cattle, pigs, and 35 species of fish have already been genetically modified in attempts to create their production of milk and meat beyond the limits their body can bear without damage. Christ 2003. Apart from the immense suffering they cause to animals, not that that can be so easily pushed aside, these technologies are unraveled, ridiculously costly and inefficient, and most importantly, unsafe to both animals and humans. That is because genetic engineering is a hit-or-miss process. A large number of animals have to undergo surgery, in which many die in order to produce a very few amount of successes. In fact, between 85 and 99% of genetically altered embryos die before they are born. Only 0.5 to 4% of embryos are transferred to foster mother animals are born alive. Vogel 2000. Many transgenic animals that are born alive die in early stage with a range of malformations and severe health problems, often due to organ effects. Christ 2003. The failures are killed off as rubbish. Even Dolly, the first cloned sheep, which was the only lamb born from 277 embryos in that trial, Cogden 1997. Yet the media hailed it as a great success. Speaking of the media, the real results from these cruelest of animal experiments are kept from public eye. Pictures of genetically engineered animals are extremely difficult to find. In the words of genetic engineering expert Bob Phelps of the Genetics Network Australia, the many failed genetic modified experiments are just quietly shelved. Public awareness of the development of transgenic livestock is much smaller than that of transgenic agricultural crops. The deficiency of scientific studies and the public debates concerning risks caused by transgenic farm animals is astonishing, having in mind the abundance of research carried out in the field of animal biotechnology. Christ 2003. Not only that, non-human animals are never able to give such consent. It is therefore never acceptable to test medicines on perfectly healthy animals, even if the treatments are used on other animals. In addition to the physical pain suffered by animals during medicine testing, the animals also experience mental pain. According to Singer, 3 separate British government committees have agreed that animals are not only capable of feeling physical pain, but also mental pain, such as fear, anxiety, stress, and etc. Animals kept in cages in medicine laboratories are undergoing anxiety of being abused again every single day. Moreover, they endure stress and fear while the tests are being conducted. Sue Farnito, in her article, Animal Protection Groups, Scientists Call for an End to Non-Human Primates in Research and Testing, revealed, primates in laboratories can be forced to live alone in small metal cages, be subjected to handling by humans, and endure various procedures such as multiple surgeries, food and water deprivation, and the infection with deadly pathogens. As a result, many live in a constant state of anxiety, remembering what has happened to them or their companions and anticipating what may happen next. Behaviors such as self-mutilation, stereotypical movement, and hair pulling then begin to show in the animal. Farnito, 2005. This condition completely violates point number 1 in Article 6 of the Universal Declaration of Animal Rights, which says, experiments on animals entailing physical or psychological suffering violate the rights of animals.
Thank you, Mickey. Now Lindsay will join us for the cross-examination.
Do you believe animal testing is scientifically reliable? And can you give an example where it is proven unreliable?
No, I do not believe that animal testing is scientifically reliable, and this can be supported in more than one example dating all the way back to the 1960s. According to an academic journal entitled Science Looks at Smoking, human data has historically been interpreted in the light of laboratory data derived from non-human animals. This has resulted in unfortunate medical consequences. For instance, by 1963, prospective and retrospective studies of human patients had already shown a very strong correlation between cigarette smoking and lung cancer. In contrast, almost all experimental efforts to produce lung cancer in animals had failed. As a result, Clarence Little, a leading cancer animal experimenter, wrote, "The failure of many investigators to induce experimental cancers, except a handful of cases during 50 years of trying, cast serious doubts on the validity of cigarette lung cancer theory." Because the human and animal data failed to agree on this, researchers and others distrusted the more reliable human data. As a result, human warnings were delayed for years, while thousands of people died of lung cancer.
What are some examples of these horrific acts of animal exploration you speak of?
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the general public, which cares about the animal welfare, has been led to believe that animals rarely suffer in laboratories. Animal experimenters often cite USDA statistics, which are derived from researchers themselves, which claim that only 6 to 8% of animals used in animal experimentation experience pain unrelieved by anesthesia. However, mice, rats, and birds, who in the United States constitute for over 90% of all animals used in animal experimentation, receive absolutely no protection from the Animal Welfare Act, which makes it possible for these animals to be subjected to cruel and heinous methods of testing, which they suffer an incredible amount of discomfort and pain.
What non-animal method do you propose we use and why?
There are quite a few out there, but researchers right now believe that microfluidic circuits provide the nearest thing to a human body on a chip. They comprise tiny channels with cells from various human organs and are linked by a circulating blood substitute. Using these circuits, new drugs can be tested on a whole system where they encounter human cells in the same order as they would encounter them in the human body. Sensors in the chip then feedback information for computer analysts. Microfluidic circuits promise to deliver early in the preclinical phase data of dramatically improved predicted relevancy to the human organism.